So this is gonna be a fun little random look behind, like, the behind the scenes of how I do Freddy and Friends. Uh, I just was drawing today's chapter, and it's like, oh, I haven't drawn the outside of the pizzeria in a while, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna look up what the image was, like, of what it looks like, and then it's like, okay, yeah, that's about what I remember it being. I just want to make sure, like, hey, is there cutoff points? Like, I was trying to remember specifically whether I had the lines on the outside like they are on the inside. Because you can see in the pizzeria, there's the vertical black lines that line the floor of the walls that kind of mimic. Let me just, like, sketch it what it would look like if I actually drew it the way it was in game. But it's more like this, and then it has, like, the checker pattern that alternates. That's too complicated to draw in a newspaper for me consistently. It would look off model constantly. It'd be distracting. The black bar, well, not amazing looking always, it looks better than if I tried to draw it. Like, I can barely do the checkerboard floors to begin with. Doing the two sets of checkerboards at different perspectives would really mess with me, so I don't do it. I just make it a black bar. This is a funky little chapter because we have Future Freddy, Freddy 57, spelled F-R-I, or F-R-E-D-D-I-E, to help separate him from normal Freddy. We got Roxy in this chapter, because I was like, why would they know people who would help Freddy get back to the present, was one thing I was wondering when I kind of... Originally, the pitch of this episode to myself, because I write out episode pitches, I have notes on them, was that it would be the entire Glamrock Fury's Rage group time travel to the wrong past, or something like that. Or it would be the past. And the idea was originally that it was going to be just straight up like, oh, we're from the future and we just happen to look like you. But I'm like, but how would they all be so identical? And also, that doesn't allow for weird foreshadowing, if that makes sense. Like, I can't have, like, nods to the future or, like, stuff like that, because why would they know this group's past? So I have to make up a reason for that if that's the case. So what I settled on that allows kind of the best of both worlds is it's an alternate dimension that is set in the future. So this is Freddy Fazbear, the same one we have, but in an alternate dimension where he lives in Terminator forever. That happens to be 2057, which is a Freddy 57 Freddy in space joke. With Lolhax as the Skynet counterpart. That's like, it's jokes upon jokes upon jokes. So I'm like, okay, how... Now that it's only Freddy, because I didn't want to design all five of them. All five? All four of them, I would say. I'd probably do four. I don't think I would do all five. As in including, like, the daycare attendant or, like, other characters I might... No, it would be five if I wanted to do Bonnie. So either I already have Bonnie killed off to cut. It's one of those, like, you can actually hear my thought process of, like, how would I have pulled this off if I tried to do it, and why I didn't, why I only had Freddy go back. Is Terminator was actually relatively recent when this chapter canonically would have been made. So see, that's why he kind of has this Kyle Reese kind of bit to him. He's not character-wise the same as Kyle Reese, but there is some influence in how I made him. Especially with, like, my future sucks and everything's miserable. Like, Kyle Reese isn't like that, but, like, that is kind of the tone he brings back of, like, it's so serious and we have to be worried about the future. That's why, like, we have to make sure it happens the right way. It's like, that's that kind of tone of the action hero that Kyle Reese represents, and that kind of, like, the future's doomed and it's all misery. Like I said, that's not Kyle Reese's actual character, but that is what I wanted Freddy to be a riff on, and I wanted him to interact with our Freddy to see, like, the exact opposite of that. And that was the core of the episode, regardless of whether I had all Glamrocks or just him come back. I guess he's more of a Fury's Rage character. The only reference to the Glamrocks, there are two details about Future Freddy I just noticed that I keep screwing up, which is his gauntlet, or his, like, bracers, like his bracelets, disappear sometimes, and his you don't even see it in this shot, but, like, he has, like, it's not lipstick, it's like the lower lip paint that like, if his mouth is like this, it would go here. like that. So it's this. It's that. I've caught myself most of the time, but sometimes I do forget it's there. But I don't like when his bracelets disappear because it makes his arms look a little weird because he's so aggressively muscular. That like when he doesn't have something separating or breaking up his arms, it just kind of like looks a little uncanny sometimes. Like see here, it's like it looks a little plain, but when you throw in the bracelets, it kind of balances the design out a little more. Doesn't really matter which layer I'm on for this sketch. And some of the line art's supposed to be a little cruddy intentionally to make it look like it is an indie webcomic trying to recapture the original like newspapery feel. That's the in-universe lore. That's a vibe I'm going for. Also, I don't think I'd be able to do it daily if I tried to do the best possible quality. But what I was getting at with this initial recording is when I was looking at the reference for the building, this drawing of Freddy caught me off guard. Because I don't know why, like, I expected my art to look a little better. I don't know why, like, my brain, the drawings of the first few episodes were better than they really are. Like, this hand is fine. It serves the purpose. It's way too big, but, like, this perspective works for, like, the way I draw hands in this. But, just, this looks like, the Chris where the fuck are we meme of Freddy. Also, I hadn't figured out how I was doing Freddy's ears yet at this point. What I settled on, you can kind of see it here, is they're kind of square, like where they go like that. That's how Freddy's ears work. But at this point, it was more like that, or like, actually, I'm so muscle memory now that it's kind of hard to do it the wrong way. But I was just kind of doing that originally, and it's like, that's not great. That's not how the ears really should work. You can see like what they kind of are supposed to be like here, but even this was a little wrecked. But like, compare this drawing of Fredbear to not this one. This one's but it's fine. But this one, like I said, the what are Chris, where the fuck are we meme version of his face. Like, the build is so much more fleshed out. He's weirdly long right now, like very strangely long, when he's supposed to be very round. I mean, Fredbear's supposed to be a little chunkier than normal Freddy, but they're not. They're very similar builds as characters. I haven't drawn Foxy with Hook lately. I just realized Foxy's Hook. It was supposed to be a thing where it just vanishes and reappears at random as like a faux animation error kind of thing. But like canonically, whenever Foxy doesn't have the hook, it's just in the like one of her pockets. So he just like kind of stuffs in his pocket whenever things are going around, or like, oh, I want to grab something more properly. And then sometimes I just do both. I just have the hook in a physical place where it makes no sense. But anyway, back to this chapter, it's like, okay, I can't have all four Glamrocks or all five if I wanted Bonnie to be alive. And Freddy's the emotional core of this episode anyway, both Freddys. Okay, so now he's in the past. But now I don't have one of the other Glamrocks to be like the brainiac who gets the tech working to get them back to the future. Because that was always going to be like the bit, is it was going to be like, oh, he can't get back, or they can't get back. And then they need someone to help get the tech ready to go to the future. And then in the downtime is when we get the character development for Freddy to be a less kind of like, you need to be in perfect shape, you need to be at perfect accuracy, you need to defeat all robots, we're all going to die if you aren't properly prepared. Like, that's his character at the start. And he needed the downtime, especially with art, like the present day Freddy, or I should say the 1987 Freddy, to learn to not be an not egotistical, not to be a super serious prick. Okay, so there's no, I can't make like Roxy the Brainiac, or Monty, or Chica, or any of them. I can't make them like the person who repairs it. So, because if Freddy knew how to repair it, he'd just fix it, you know? Like, he wouldn't talk to anyone. He'd just spend his time fixing it, like, hey, can I borrow a part? Yeah, I guess we got an aux cable in the back. Like, that's all the chapter would be. He needs someone else to do it. And that's when I was like, okay, who can I pull in 1987 that would be able to fix a broken device that allows time travel? Well, I already knew at this point that Roxy was going to be deceptively smart as kind of one of her running bits. Like, you do not think of Roxy as smart college student. But I'm like, she runs a raceway and she like is in repair stuff in security breach. Like it's her motorway and all that. So I'm like, what if she was deceptively smart, but specifically with automotive cars? And also just generally kind of smart. It helps separate her from Chica in general, because, well, Chica isn't dumb at all. She is a little airheaded at times when I write her. Like, I never want it to be as far as later season Patrick. I want it to always be within like this kind of like, she just makes weird, silly decisions sometimes with how her brain clicks into like places. But Roxy's supposed to be kind of the opposite, and Bella's like the even further extreme opposite, where Bella is completely the straight man to Chica's nonsense, and Roxy is in a way kind of a like, oh, she's always competent and aware. She just chooses not to be helpful and cause chaos sometimes. Like, and in this context, if she goes to college for like automotive engineering because she works on cars and wants to do that, she might be able to find people who know this kind of tech, and that has led to Doc and Greg. Greg being a reference to the lion in the end of Security Breach, or end of Ruin. The name just kind of lines up. It's just like a funny little Easter egg. It's canonically they just picked the name Greg. And then Doc, just general Doc Brown kind of reference and joke. He doesn't look like Doc Brown at all. Is it his name Doc Brown, the Back to the Future one? I think so, right? But that's kind of a subtle joke there. His personality isn't based on it. I picture him with a German accent. That's just because I want a verbal tick for him, and that's a funny little one. And then the kind of bit with Greg was like, what if this is like, I didn't want to have to draw the bird because the bird doesn't make sense to be a college student, you know? Or like the crow lady secretary kind of design, or like librarian, whatever you want to call it, in Ruin. I didn't want to call upon that because it's like, okay, I guess the librarian would be smart, but it's still kind of a weird pull. So either I make her also professor, which kind of takes away from Doc's uniqueness, or I take the elephant, who's a clown. And it's like, why would there be an elephant clown? As funny as that is, it's kind of too much of a non sequitur to pull him as like the genius. But then I thought, like, well, okay, we have like a varsity jacket lion. What if, despite being like a varsity captain kind of character, he's also the star pupil of a theoretical physicist? I don't know why that particular combo of like, yeah, I do this. I also play football. Like, that character, I don't know why, just kind of like made me chuckle a little bit. So that's why he's here. So I just drew him like that. This is literally minutes after I made up this design on the spot. I mean, to be fair, I don't have to make it up from scratch for him. I do have to make it up from scratch for Doc. I didn't want him to look like Bonnie or earlier in this chapter, I think. Yeah, 14, page 14. We get to see a background rabbit. We have Spring Bonnie, who also has a similar head. Like, I've had 3 separate rabbits in a row who all have this face shape, even if there's subtle differences. So I wanted a rabbit who looked a little different. He has like the backwards kind of pointing ears that some more traditional hares in the wild have. I wanted him to look more like a traditional kind of rabbit to oppose like the weird cartoony rabbit that Bonnie is. This is a bit I've had this entire chapter just in the background of my head that it's not called attention to at all. But because Freddy is a jerk and Foxy isn't here for all of his character development, Foxy just is kind of in a sour mood with Freddy the entire chapter. It's just like the subtle thing every now and then where Foxy's just always kind of glaring at Freddy. Freddy has to pull him away so she doesn't maul him. Like, or not Freddy, Roxy. That was... It's here and... yeah, here. I'm still figuring out some of the proportions. Like, Roxy's neck is really long for this one shot. But then, like, Bonnie... Like, this is one of my favorite drawings of Bonnie, just because, like, this is what his proportions should look like. We also have Neko here, one of the recurring background characters. Looks a lot more like a fox than he's supposed to. Like, this is just one of those, like, I need background characters to appear. Then why make tons and tons of designs when I could have, like, oh, he's a regular at the restaurant. This little cat kid. Looks too much like a fox in this chapter. I do draw him in one shot later. Right here. This is supposed to be Neko, just drawn super wonky because he's barely visible when you look at it from the full shot. And then we have BB full shot. Like, look how on model this Freddy is compared to this one. I can't, like, these two back-to-back are such funny, like, I mean, it's art progression. I should be happy about that, and I am. And then, Roxy's a more on model here. God, it always distracts me how comically buff I've decided Glamrock Freddy should be this chapter. That's the only way I can do his bit, really. Because he's supposed to be borrowing a lot from the Fury's Rage design. So, like, he has to be excessively buff. Oh, here's a very subtle little thing that's going to make no sense until, like, a year or two from now. Assuming I don't say, like, oh, I didn't know that Schmiggles was a swear or a slur, and get canceled from that or something like that. But, like, assuming my channel lasts, because who knows what happens on YouTube internet time, if I get far enough with Neon Dynamo, this error code, T-error, or T-erro in this context, is a Neon Dynamo joke. There is a character named T-error, who will appear down the line. Also, this is our first Fredbear in the comic. I mean, I've shown his profile off, the art of him, but this is our first shot of Fredbear. It's a flashback. Fredbear isn't alive in the present day of Freddy and Friends, but our first look at him. I had to do a lot of subtle things to make him look different from Freddy, so his spots, like the face spots, are moved up on him. He has a line demarking his snout. He's a little bulkier in some spots, but I'm too inconsistent with the art for that to be really noticeable. But instead of having a black bow tie with little bits of shading, he has a white bow tie when it's black and white with shading. It's supposed to be purple with color. And then he has the white buttons, and his hat is also heavily shaded. With this little song I came up with, which was, like, not even really meant to be in the chapter, but I realized it fit perfectly where there was, like, a perfect opportunity to have it. So it's like, Fredbear's Family Diner, Fredbear's Family Diner, pizza 10 cents a slice. Ugh. It flows a little weird here because it's like a modified version of it. Fredbear's Family Diner, Fredbear's Family Diner, pizza 10 cents a slice, Fredbear's Family Diner, soda's just good a price. Fredbear's Family Diner will make your days brighter. Fredbear's Family Diner will make your nights lighter. Fredbear's Family Diner, fantasy and fun come to life. Bring your husband, kids, or wife. You don't need to worry, 'cause it's time to hurry to Fredbear's Family Diner. Fredbear's Family Diner. Fredbear's Family Diner. I'm not a singer and I'm not a songwriter, so it's probably really shitty in practice musically, but it's simple enough. It's a simple little poem kind of song that fits the vibe of this Freddy and kind of what he's learning in this chapter. Also, this is another funny, like, little thing. Foxy is supposed to be the same height as normal Freddy at 6 feet tall. In this chapter, or not in this chapter, just in general. So when you think about this is a 6 foot tall fox. This is a like 7 foot tall box of random metal parts and junk that is just being carried around casually, which is more to gender fluid Mute Fox Hercules kind of overall bit in general. Fun fact that this is the only remnant of a separate unused joke I might as well point out while I'm here. I think it's strip 2. This is the only time Foxy has made a noise so far. Because the original bit, before I settled on the mute thing, was that Foxy would get cut off every time she was about to speak. And that Freddy would just be like, "Shh, I'm speaking for you now." And he'd just be cut off every time and never get to say anything. So, like, that was the original bit here, was that we would never get to hear Foxy speak, but it wasn't like a willingness thing. Now, 7 episodes in, I'm more settled on this bit that Foxy just chooses not to speak. And is either intentionally mute or physically mute, as in they cannot speak for whatever reason. Which is kind of why I made them super strong, because it's like, what does Foxy do if they can't talk? Because it's like, oh, they would have the cunning of a pirate, you might think, because this Foxy still is a pirate, canonically. But it's like, okay, if you don't have the cunning of, like, the threatening, or the trickery, or, like, the skullduggery kind of angle, if you don't have the ability to, like, trick and intimidate, or, like, I've outfoxed you this time, if we don't have that going on for this Foxy, like, they have to have something going on. So I was like, oh, what if they have all the absurd physical feats of, like, a pirate and adventurer, but never say anything? So it's just like, they just do things. And then, like, the gender fluid jokes to reference to Mangle and all that, which I had to find an in-canon reason for, and that in-canon reason became hard to justify if they talked. So she had to be mute. Because if he talked, everyone would just, like, especially since it's the 80s, it would just be whatever they sound like it would be run with. So either I have to figure out how to voice a gender-neutral character, or get someone to voice a gender-neutral character, or at least gender-neutral voice, I should say. Or she just doesn't talk. And they're stuck trying to figure out what's going on with them, and that's like a bit. That's what it settled on there. Oh god, I'm talking for 20 minutes. I can talk about any of my projects, I swear. Forever, if I really tried. Also, I love making Roxy's hair ridiculously poofy. It's definitely kind of got that 80s, like, giant, not wig, but like that giant poofy hair kind of bit going on with her. It's something I've been fiddling with almost every time Roxy appears. Let me try to find more examples. Is how I work her eyes. What am I doing with these eyes? So, like, I think I've overall settled on an eye shape that, let me use kind of the blank canvas area, that looks a bit more like this. It's not a great example, but it's like, it's different, and it's more angular, which is nice because it contrasts, like, the softer eyes of a lot of the characters. It works around her snout well. That's something I've been trying to figure out, is like, for characters who have, like, the long snout like this, it's nice to have the eye, the angular kind of thing to work around it. That's not where the mouse should be. So it's like, you can kind of see how it makes her face just by doing that, which is, I like when I can do that, because it helps make the faces distinct. It helps, like, have certain cues and things I work with, or, like, when I'm drawing them. Because if I, like, for example, Bonnie's face is just a circle with his, little, thing. This little curve indents where his nose should be. It also tells you where he's facing. So he's facing this way, whereas if I want him to be facing that way, that curve dictates that. So, boom, he has his nose, and now he's facing that way. And then Chica's also a circle, and then I have her beak dictate everything, like where she's facing. So like, ta-da, Chica drawn, with her hair kind of swooping whatever way she's looking. I mean, her hair normally isn't that swoopy. It should just be like that. But if she's like really angular, then it's going to swoop a little. Another thing I've been working on is for a lot of the female characters and Foxy, I have the defined eyelashes, but every character kind of has kind of one or two configurable eyelash sets, and then sometimes there's little quirks between them, even between that. But Chica, basically any high energy character gets upper eyelashes. So Dee Dee, Chica both get the upper eyelashes, for example. But any more mellow character gets the lower eyelashes. So Roxy's eyelashes, I think, change. So, look, in this shot, she has the lower eyelashes. Where's... In this one, she has the higher eyelashes because she's angry and, like, focused and all that. And then she has these kind of medium eyelashes when she's, like, layering here. And then they move down a bit when she's over here. It's like, Roxy's eyelashes kind of change depending on her energy because she can kind of be both in a context. But JJ, for example, as the most chill of the balloon trio, has the lower eyelashes. And also all the balloon kids have the same hair. It's purely the eyelashes that make their faces different. And their hats. Which I had to work with because it's a black and white comic. JJ just gets nothing. Instead of getting the propellers like Dee Dee, or the extended propellers like this that Balloon Boy has, she gets nothing. And then Foxy, as probably one of the most chill characters in the series, always has the lower eyelashes. And I think Bella does too, I want to say. If I don't draw characters back to back, I'll kind of forget some details until I take a reference back to what do they look like. Bella has upper eyelashes in the concept art. Did she keep that in the comic? Because sometimes I'll make some last minute changes when they appear. Bella was big in chapter 5. Lower. Oh yeah, so all the characters change their eyelashes depending on energy, but where's more shots of Bella? Let me use these. Yeah, she also is kind of like Roxy, where her eyelashes kind of change depending on context. I love the stupid... This face is supposed to be dumb. Sometimes I'll draw a face, and it's terrible. This is a horrible face on an objective level for, like, an art standpoint. But it's too funny to get rid of. I can't not have this face. It's a comic that's supposed to be drama when it's drama and funny when I want it to be funny. And if my goal is to make you laugh, how can I not keep the funniest looking face? Bella is one of the best examples of a design kind of being fixed after its original version. The original art of Bella did not look good. This is my unsatisfactory bin with Beta, Roxy, and Bella. I don't like this design. I really dislike this design, actually. It's proportioned wrong in this art. It's like, I don't like the fact that the headband completely covers her head entirely. Or not the headband, the bow. Like, this is definitely step one to achieving this design, but this design just feels better to look at. And fits kind of what I wanted Bella's character to be the mellow contrast to Chica. It just looks more casual, like a real person, if that makes sense. You know, like there's something about that original design did not feel like a real person's outfit. And it's not to say everyone has to have realistic outfits, but it's like that didn't feel like your casual chill friend, if that makes sense. That felt like a character made up to be a character in something, which I didn't really like. There's a tons of little Easter eggs and stuff that I'm not even sure how visible are when most people are looking at them. Like the fact that BB is apparently really good at skee ball, and has just this huge pile of tickets building up. The scoreboard implies that Freddy is really good at pinball, followed by BB. Then BNI would be Bonnie. And then JJ is the follow-up scorer. For example, and then there's just little bits of continuity where it's like, you can see how much pizza they've been eating, that they're almost done with it, and stuff like that. There's all other little jokes, like the fact that the sign emotes with whatever's going on. Anytime Foxy gets like really serious and like actually doing something, or is like just really focused and in kind of that like, I gotta do something, I gotta take action, I gotta be like serious mode. I either have their eyes go completely white, or I have it like the glossed over look that was constantly in Chica's first night. That was 6. Oh, wait, I picked the one page. Okay, here it is. This is an example of it, but it's more prevalent elsewhere. This is a good example, yeah. This glossed over eye look is just whenever Chica's more, or not Chica, Foxy's more serious and like active, and not just like a chill normal person. Their eyes glossed over. God, just look how much better this Freddy looks than this one, even though this one is really funny. Like, I actually, now that I'm looking at it so long, I'm wondering, is this an example where I just made a stupid looking face and ran with it, or did I genuinely think this was good looking? Like, look how much more normal Bonnie looks like here. This is also a little design thing that evolved. Bonnie's hair swoops changed between chapters. It was small, but his original hair swoops were, originally he didn't have any. I think actually the first ever time I drew him, he just has like his normal rabbit ears. But then I noticed that in his Freddy and Friends on Tour design, he has like 2 little swoopies here with his ears. And then he's like, ooh, I'm Bonnie. He doesn't talk. But, you know, like this. So I gave him the 2 swoopies in his hair. But that didn't, like, fill out his head enough when I was drawing it. Not the same way it did in the on tour design. So what I instead did was I gave him 3 swoopies that kind of go all the way down to his face sometimes. And that really fills out his head, which is something I really liked. Another thing I've done is, as kind of my everlasting development of how eyes work in the series, is for some characters, their eyes are kind of like conjoined, like the line, as long as it doesn't cross over like this, you know, that doesn't look good. But if they're like side by side like this, kind of Simpson-y, that's fine. Or sometimes I do kind of more spaced out ones, or ones that barely share overlap or like connection. Foxy and Freddy are currently like the leaders of our eyes like overlap like this, because they just have less space on their face typically than others. But sometimes when I want Fox to be a bit more aggressive, they get the same eyes that Roxy does. But because the eyes are glossed, you don't really notice it's the same eyes. Also, Foxy just has a different build face. I just noticed something really wrong with this image. Did you notice something catastrophically wrong that's like a huge part of the face shape of Foxy? Whoops. That's been fixed. Oh, fun little detail. Because I actually drew Foxy before double checking some details. The existence of Foxy's hair swoop and the actual canon designs of the characters is really spotty. So Mangle and the completed Funtime Foxy, I believe, do not have this little hair swoop. But Adventure Funtime Foxy, the one in FNAF World, does have the hair swoop, and so does Adventure Mangle. And then Funtime Foxy, or normal Funtime, or the sister location Funtime Foxy, the normal sister location Funtime Foxy has the hair swoopy. Like the little, it has that. And so does original classic Foxy and most of his variants. Most normal Foxys have the hair swoops. So I just drew it on Foxy because I didn't even think about it. Because I just envisioned that as part of Foxy's design. But that's not actually a thing in Mangle's design. Normally. But it is in Adventure Mangle, so it's like I could do it. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not going to take it back. But it's just a fun little example at like where it's just little details got adjusted and changed. Anyway, it's 1 o'clock. I normally upload the chapters at like 10 to 12, and I've been talking for 37 minutes. So I think I'm gonna end this off here. This should be a fun little ranting about making Freddy and Friends, and like the thought that goes into it, the planning of it all, what goes into an episode chapter, like what thoughts do I go through for like what I adapt, what I don't adapt, what I bring in. One thing I always like is having like a layer of plausible deniability to what I adapt. Like, this Freddy is very clearly to us real-world FNAF fans based on Fury's Rage and Glamrock Freddy. However, there is a level of plausible deniability to his design where you can totally think, oh, they could just make up a punk rock Freddy who looks like this. Actually, while on the topic of Freddy, because I just noticed this, people probably have noticed this if they're paying attention. Glamrock Freddy is rotoscoped slightly, just for his muscles, really. I don't, like, you can even see that even then I'm playing fast and loose with it to keep the more cartoony build, to make him not look too uncanny. His head shape, most of his clothes, his hands are all completely drawn. But his muscles and arms, you can see this in this shot, for example. Even though it's not here in the file right now, you have the muscle build that's built into Clip Studio that I use for him to do these muscles, like the kind of pectorals and the abs. Just because, while I can draw these with enough time, I struggle drawing them quickly, especially for a newspaper comic like this. Another little Easter egg is what this model specifically is. This, because you can adjust stuff like, oh, skinny, weak, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can adjust all kinds of settings. The specific character Glamrock Freddy's model borrows from in Neon Dynamo is a Neon Dynamo character, because Neon Dynamo is most characters are actually rotoscoped the same way, where it's like I used it for scale, mainly actually Neon Dynamo, because I struggle with keeping heights in Neon Dynamo consistent, so having models with different heights have really helped with that. And I do use it for like muscle stuff too, but so Neon Dynamo is also heavily rotoscoped, but the character this goes to is named Theodonorus Trexidime, who's like a dragon kind of thing. And he is supposed to be like the Hercules of dragon folk. So he is like a legendary, like abnormally strong, weirdly powerful in his context. To the point where he kind of is just a living. I'm trying to think, like like I said, he is Hercules basically in this context. He's Dragon Hercules. So he is probably the most comically buff character in terms of his build. He doesn't have like pectorals and abs really in his design. He kind of has the more like scaly underbelly design because he's a dragon. But I do, for like his build being huge and intimidating, I had the model especially for him. And I picked that one to be used as Future Freddy's base, because it was the most athletic one I had on hand. I could have just customized one to be his, but might as well borrow it. It's a little Easter egg that he has the same build as Theodore in that comic. But anyway, I'm going to finish drawing this. That's all. Actually, I'm doing a Freddy and Friends thing. Bye.